一啲團體嚟，唔該晒。睇先呢個字都幾難讀啊 Panaris。OK。好啊。我不如講佢團體名，仲我講名，講名啦，就講大啲談啦嚇。program 嘛，大啲談得啦。點解咧？將啲數字social Hong Kong 翻出去，呢啲重啲啦，好過講名辛苦啲。咦，講下唔知啊，唔該晒。今日咧就係我哋我哋今日嘅議題咧就講改善難民、酷刑聲請者及尋求庇護者喺香港生活狀況。咁我哋咧就今日就總共有保安局首席助理秘書長就胡德英先生，同社會福利處處長麥周淑霞女士，同埋社會福利處助理處長同馮文仲先生，歡迎大家。我哋都希望你哋先係啦，簡單介紹下好嘛？唔該。
主席，我好簡單講兩句啦，就相關議題嘅一啲政策考慮嗰個細節安排，同埋近年最新嘅發展呢，其實我哋喺剛剛提出嘅文件呢都羅列咗出嚟嘅。咁我哋今日好高興有機會呢，可以係同議員同埋不同關注嘅團體呢係。團體我哋唔使去入。
你講嚟㗎。
好啊，咁我哋好高興今日有機會可以作一個即係聽到團體嘅意見。咁我諗我哋聽完晒意見之後呢，我同社署嘅同事呢，再一併去即係同大家討論同埋回應嚇。
我亦都想等團體入嚟嘅時候呢，同同事講，今日呢，我哋有兩個唔同嘅題目，就兩個組合嘅，即係福利同我哋即係呢個項目呢，本來就請咗保安，但保安佢話佢今日嚟啦。咁我哋下一 part 就講露宿者嘅，就同民政主席就由民政做主席，咁所以變咗我哋時間比較緊張啲，即係話我哋而家由呢個3點鐘到4點半就拍一定要完，而且要喺內完咗，就跟住到下一 part 好嘛？唔該晒。咁啊，我哋團體入緊嚟哦。OK。好，唔該，係國際咩？即係第一個。好，佢係呢個嘅。係咩？兩個係咪組織？即係中文就係咩？國際社。國際社會服務社。國際社。第二個屬於咩啊？特康空域。Refugee Advice Centre 應該係咩嚟㗎？呢個中文我哋都冇，即係個難字嘅，即係佢問我啲意見嘅。OK。好多就係。好。Thank you。我哋可以 Facebook 可以講呢啲嘅，即係話睇我或者同所有嚟嘅團體啦，大家就首先帶起個好似耳風嗰個物體 ，iPhone 係啦。我哋有唔同嘅收聽嘅，如果係用英語嘅咧，就係呢個2號；如果係用現場咧，就係0號。粵語咧就1號，睇下大家係啦。如果唔熟嘅，揾我哋啲工作人員幫手啊。我哋揾啲同事幫手嘛。係啦。 都會自願對呢個自願調呢個得唔得 ？OK。有啲好。如果大家冇問題咧，跟住我哋就係、如果有問題請舉手，唔熟嘅就係啦。如果冇問題咧，就係、我想同大家講講，我哋咧任何團體嚟到呢度咧，或者個人咧，就係佢哋喺會議上發言唔受到立法會嘅權力及特權條例第382條所定嘅保障及豁免嘅。同時，各位代表提交意見書同樣唔喺呢個條例保障豁免嘅範圍內。好啦，我哋政府就係主要嚟聽意見係嘛 ？OK， 好。咁我而家首先請團體先，就每個團體咧係3分鐘。我哋首先請第一位咧 ，First 呢個 International Social Service Hong Kong Branch，please。佢哋仲未掂，係我就嚟講，唔好意思啊。
第一個未冇嚟到，
第三第三位，第二位都未到，第三位係工黨嘅副秘書長郭永健先生。
係大家好。咁工黨呢就住難民同埋酷刑申請者嘅生活狀況係有以下嘅意見嘅。咁而家香港呢有4700名難民啦。咁呢，但係佢哋即係滯留喺香港期間得到嘅對待呢並不人道嘅。以美國有線電視新聞網呢，係甚至用呢個羞恥同埋猶如被囚禁呢嚟形容難民喺香港嘅生活。工黨呢認為香港係作為經濟發達地區同埋國際社會嘅一份子呢，係有能力同埋有責任呢，係俾難民佢哋有一個最基本嘅保障。另外呢，工黨都認為呢應該係加快審核佢哋難民身份，等佢哋呢滯留呢都係即係可以盡快到達收容國，或者呢係遣返去原居地。而家難民抵港之後呢，首先會向聯合國難民專員公署申請難民身份啦。等待確認嗰個時間呢係長達3年。等到確認之後呢，又要去到即係收容國嗰度呢去申請。咁呢個過程呢又要幾年啦。咁身份呢未能得到確認，又唔想被遣返呢，又可以即係去到特區政府呢係即係申請嗰個酷刑聲請。而呢個過程呢又係要3年，3年又3年，佢哋嘅生活呢係充滿住等待。就喺呢個長達6年嘅等待過程之中，難民呢冇得喺即係香港嗰度工作啦，亦冇辦法讀書。即使呢話去慈善團體嗰度做義工，都係不被允許嘅。由於佢哋無法工作，所以呢只有依靠呢個國際社會服務社去申請基本嘅援助嚟維持佢哋基本嘅生活。佢哋每10日就得到1袋嘅食物，咁入邊呢係有啲簡單嘅即係蔬果啊、雞蛋啊、麵包咁樣。而住所嘅租金呢係由國際社俾，但係呢個租金最多呢係得個1200蚊。加上呢，即係國際社係唔會提供呢個租金嘅上期或者按金，好少業主呢願意係租出呢啲單位俾難民。以咁嘅租金水平同埋咁樣嘅條件呢，實在好難喺香港揾到一個基本嘅居所。就以喺即係坪輋租住嘅難民為例啦，佢哋坪輋嘅居所呢，好多都係由豬欄改建而成，條件呢係十分之簡陋嘅。而咧佢哋嘅廁所同埋佢哋嘅即係廚房呢係擺埋一齊，衛生情況非常惡劣。喺咁惡劣嘅環境之下呢，即使咧佢哋生病呢，都要咧先向呢個國際社係申請呢個醫藥費同埋交通費，要等到批准之後呢，先可以去睇病。而家咧政府咧係資助咗2億俾香港國際社會服務社啦，但係成效咧係充滿疑問。已經有傳媒報道過咧，即係佢哋嘅難民嘅租住合約咧，有唔少人咧係報住一啲唔存在嘅地址，但係實際上咧係被安排住喺個豬欄寮屋嗰度。咁咧有團體甚至係質疑呢個做法係旨在掩飾不人道對待真相。總括而言咧，工黨認為香港對於難民咧係應該提供一個人道嘅援助。政府應該全盤檢討現時支援難民喺食物、醫療、教育、交通上嘅支援，應該提供資助俾非政府機構，為難民舉辦一啲唔同嘅活動，同埋等佢哋可以參與義務工作。同時應該係縮短佢哋嗰個審核嘅時間嘅。OK， 呢啲時間都夠啦。跟住呢，我哋第一個團體第一個呢，就係呢個係 International Social Service Hong Kong Branch。唔該。
Thank you, Chairman.
International Social Service Hong Kong branch has been serving the local community and migrants and refugees in Hong Kong since 55 years ago. And we have such an extensive background in dealing with this welfare assistance. Since 2006, ISS Hong Kong has been designated by the government through a tender process to provide this assistance project. Let me just highlight the guidelines by which we operate as a contracted agency of the government. 1, assistance is humanitarian and it's a tide-over grant. This is a government statement and aimed at preventing the service clients from destitution. It is not equivalent to welfare assistance. All service clients of ISS are referred by Social Welfare Department to us. We are not accepting any walk-in clients because they have to be initially assessed by Social Welfare Department. And they have to be looked at in terms of sense of urgency and the kind of assistance that they would require. The referrals by which Social Welfare Department IFSCs are acted upon by ISS is again dependent on sense of urgency. The casework approach that's being used is on the premise that one social worker or caseworker is appointed for every client. The current ratio is one social worker has 130 clients, which is almost double the amount of the ratio with the local integrated family service centers. The assistance in kind does not come as a package. There is an eligibility criteria for every assistance. So if somebody comes and even if the package consists of accommodation, food, clothing, toiletries, transportation, it doesn't come automatic. What has to happen is there's a system for an interview process with every client, and every client is assessed on an eligibility criteria with requirements defined by Social Welfare Department on when each client can be accepted or not, and when discretionary decisions are made. This is very clearly laid in the ISS and SWD contract. A contract agreement between ISS and the client is simply stating that the client is found to be eligible for that specific assistance in the agreement for a period of 1 month. This monthly agreement is reviewed when the clients show up for a renewal of the agreement. So it's always on a monthly basis and not a long-term basis at all. This is why it's considered as a tide-over grant. There is no distinction as to where you live in Hong Kong. You can be in Hong Kong Island, Kowloon, or New Territories. The same types of assistance can be offered. The differences in the levels of assistance and the types of assistance depends on the result of actually the interview process. I think the details of the assistance are listed. What ISS has to say is simply that all of this, all of the manner, modalities by which this assistance is delivered is part of an agreement in a tender contract between Social Welfare Department and ISS Hong Kong. ISS cannot act on its own or create policies on its own or even do a budget on its own. Everything is granted and decided upon by the Social Welfare Department and the government. Now, we are pleased that when we came into this project in 2006, the main accomplishment is that the refugees, asylum seekers, and torture claimants are no longer living in detention centers and refugee camps, which is a primary thing that ISS wants to consider. Community living is something that we want to actually make sure continues to happen. Now, whether the assistance is not enough or enough, the ISS just wants to say that we are open for any suggestions and open for whatever changes would be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you.
now we would like to invite the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Refugee Advice Centre, Ms. Miller, to speak.
Thank you. My name's Alita Miller. I'm the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Refugee Advice Centre, or HKRAC. HKRAC is a non-governmental organisation which provides free legal assistance to asylum seekers in Hong Kong. In our 6 years of operation, we've assisted more than 1,500 people. For far too long, the Hong Kong government has treated protection claimants as temporary recipients of humanitarian assistance, a measure intended to prevent destitution. However, Hong Kong has international legal obligations to all people, regardless of their immigration status, to respect, protect and fulfil their socio-economic rights, including the right to an adequate standard of living. This obligation goes beyond the prevention of destitution. The reality is that right now, many protection claimants are suffering destitution in Hong Kong while waiting for their claims to be determined. Right now, Hong Kong is not fulfilling its international legal obligations. The current policy is bad for protection claimants and bad for Hong Kong. With no right to work, protection claimants are unable to provide for themselves and their families, to use their time productively or to contribute to our society. Protection claimants must be able to live with security and with dignity. They must either be granted the right to work to support themselves or given adequate assistance to realise an adequate standard of living. Right now, they have neither. Civil society organisations have been filling the gap and struggling to protect claimants from abject poverty, but we cannot continue to do so indefinitely. The Hong Kong government must step up and meet its responsibilities to claimants. The current assistance package must be re-evaluated. Policy reform must move from providing assistance and preventing destitution towards respecting rights, ensuring security and dignity, and promoting self-reliance. We urge the government to establish fair, transparent and accountable assistance criteria. We petition the government to conduct a comprehensive review of current assistance, including participation of protection claimants themselves and civil society organisations. Hong Kong is a wealthy city with an international reputation for human rights and rule of law, but currently Hong Kong is wasting resources through an inefficient and ineffective system and losing face. Individuals' basic rights are being denied and people are suffering. Ensuring protection claimants' rights will fulfil Hong Kong's human rights obligations, resurrect Hong Kong's reputation as a world city, and avoid Hong Kong being shamed on the international stage. Let's act now to remedy an unfair and inefficient system. We encourage the government to create a mechanism to collaborate with civil society and to continue this dialogue. By working together, we can move towards a sustainable solution firmly grounded in human rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to invite Mr. Tariq to speak. Mr. Tariq, please.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, officers. I appreciate some policies from the ISS department and what I was heard earlier, like we are not in detention centers anymore, but the problem is when we were out and we went to out to find rooms for ourselves. We were not given rooms, and whenever we went to any agency to find room, they were asking us the deposit. Do you have the deposit? And well, of course not. Then they were not willing to help us. Recently, I was kicked out from my landlord last month, 30th of June, and well, I had no place to live, so that night I slept in a stadium. And then very next day, some of my friends, they called me to live with them for a short while. And I was agreed. I found a room like there were 4 people already living. It's very small, and I could not even, if I'm lying down, I cannot turn on my other side. It was that small. So I started looking for places. Whenever I went to the agency, they were asking me for the same thing. Do you have the deposit? And I said, I don't have. And then they were asking me, what job do you have? And I said, I'm ISS client. And when I said ISS, they said, we don't accept ISS. And well, some of the agencies, they really don't want to hear the name of ISS. And at one of the agencies, I asked them, why? What is the reason? And they said, we are not getting the payment like if 3 people are living together, the ISS will pay the amount 1,200 Hong Kong dollar, but not at the fixed date. Different dates, your monthly rent will be transferred like 8th of the month, and then some of them will be 10th or earlier or later, so we don't accept it. And the other thing is the food collection. They are asking us to collect food 6 times, and I don't see anything why 6 times do we have to collect the food. And, well, the main problem is we don't have the deposit. And I gathered the deposit from some of my friends. And they asked me, you have to write something. We need your signature that you are going to pay us back that deposit. That was 12,500 Hong Kong dollars. And I'm struggling. How can I pay them back? And without deposit, I cannot find any place to live.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we would like to invite Mrs. Pereira to speak. Mrs. Pereira.
I would like to thank Vision First give it for me chance to talking about my stories. And good afternoon, sir. Even my house rent was 6,700, but ISS paying for me 6,000 for every month. So I asked to ISS, how can I find the money? Then they tell me to go and find the money somewhere else. And even the Vision First Christian Action and somewhere else. How can I go and find the somewhere else? So even the food is not enough food. I have 3 children. My elder son is 23 years, and second son 16, third son 15 years. Even my husband and me, we are 5 of them in the family. So not enough food. Even every day, same things. I cannot choose even the food. So I asked, I want to choose something else, but they say no. Whatever we are providing, you have to take, no choice. So even my children going to school, they have to cut hair every month. So where is the money? Even the bus fare, transportation, they are not paying even properly. If I go see my lawyer, they're giving half rate of the bus fare. So no anything do properly. So ISS never do anything properly. I can say that. Thank you very much.
Yes, we would like to invite Mr. Bison to speak. Mr.
Good.
Bison.
I have some photos I'm going to share with you. So destitute claimants forced into slums. So basically our statement is that the High Court Usman Butt judgment is binding on the government to offer support which is considered sufficient to prevent a person from becoming destitute. ISS pays $1,400 for 2 claimants living under this tree. An abandoned pig farm is subdivided into tiny rooms, 7 different addresses. Destitute claimants cannot move out without deposit money. Claimants recover usable items from rubbish dumps. This is the bathroom in the converted pig farm, without hot water in the winter. Electrical works and meters are illegal. ISS never pays electricity in the area of being shared to claimants. Claimants are refunded gas every 5 to 6 months. In Kowloon, people get it every 2 to 3 months. This room has a toilet next to the bed. ISS inspected this room for 5 years. Toilets are fitted unhygienically in cooking areas. Rats are known to climb out of them. The squat toilet flushes into an infested open drain. Another compound makes use of an abandoned home where 12 claimants live with 6 different addresses. This kitchen is made from a rusty office desk. The shower is a wooden shack, waterproof with bags. By inspecting this compound over 5 years, ISS obviously approved it. 8 claimants have been living here for 5 years without toilets. ISS claims local live in similar conditions. You can compare the shack in front with the villa behind. A makeshift kitchen with plastic sheets for ceiling. The shower is fitted in an alleyway between 2 buildings. Despite paying $120 rent a month, these claimants walk day and night 300 meters to a public toilet. That's 1,200, a month. These claimants walk to the public toilets. This compound is interesting. These 3 claimants have been ISS clients for 5 years, yet their homes have never been inspected. ISS claims case-by-case assessment for its needs, for clients' needs, yet They haven't visited this compound. This shack is obviously very dangerous and unlivable. Just going fast because we're running out of time. So a shower and toilet fitted in a passageway. This is an apartment. This is a block shown in one of the addresses of an ISS contract. And the tenants don't know about ISS here. We'll explain. So International Social Service stated, can I continue, please? Yeah. International Social Service stated that all the shortfalls in assistance to claimants are not ISS' fault. Ms. Panaris said that ISS hands are tied. ISS' position is that the Security Bureau is to blame for withholding necessary funding to claimants. Social Welfare Department is accountable for working alongside ISS in an oversight capacity. SWD and ISS kept the amount of assistance unchanged. With inflation, this amounts to failing to meet claimants' most basic needs. SWD and ISS conduct is egregious and an affront. Security Bureau repeatedly stated in High Court that claimants' needs are fully met and there is no need to review this policy. Security Bureau is in breach of Usman Butt case and its fiduciary duties towards claimants. Security Bureau has full knowledge of what is happening, skyrocketing inflation, and ISS maintaining fixed and unchanged rental payments since 2010. EDB, Hospital Authority, Immigration combine to ensure claimants are attacked by the government on all fronts. I just draw my conclusion. Government has allowed departments to continue welfare assistance under the false assumptions that claimants' basic material financial needs are met. This amounts to actual knowledge and willful blindness. Our conclusion is the Hong Kong government has substantially failed to fulfill its international and constitutional obligations towards claimants. The PowerPoint is on our website.
Thank you.
Now we would like to invite Mr. Hoyder to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Bishon first, and thank you, Legislative Council. So I would like to say something about our problem, the ISIS. ISIS, basically, they are paying to room rent $1,200, but it's not sufficient. In Hong Kong, cannot find the room rent like that $1,200. Without deposit, we find the room is very difficult. Because we are suffering for them, every month need to go for contact, and also for 3 times port collection, 1 time for go to the immigration signature. So always we are busy, but sometimes we don't have enough money for transportation. So if like this suffering, how long we will do that? So need to be for us, make there one good solution. The ISS contact every month 1 time or long time contacts. Every month we go to the ISS is very difficult and sitting. Then go for 3 times food collection. And food is very lower classes food. This one kind of rice. This is the basmati rice. Actually, this is not basmati rice, and that kind of rice we are eating. Actually, not good for our health. So many people starvation for this food and ISS signature, and also some problem is the medical treatment. Medical treatment is if emergency they will do our treatment, but if need normally any kinds of operation. As an example, I have the heart disease. I am the heart disease person. Last February I go to the Queen Elizabeth cardiac department. They give me for the operation date. But the medical social welfare does not pay the bill. Then doctors say cannot do the operation. If you have the own money, $200,000, then we can do the operation. Otherwise, cannot possible to do the operation. So we are really for the feel the suffer in Hong Kong. Some of problems facing is we cannot capacity to manage that. So sometimes we need the help from friends, but it is not also enough. So I have a request to the Legislative Council for do to any permanent things for us. Thank you for giving me the good chance and talking.
Oh, thank you.
Now we'd like to invite Mr. Bashiru to speak.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the problems that facing us, but it is not seen, it's invisible. And then sometimes our appearance should not be the judgment of who we are. Yes, the system has made some of us to be liars before our landlords, because this is the only way we can secure our rooms. When he asks you, when are you paying your rent? You only say, my boss will give me money, whereas you are not working. So it has created some kind of tension whenever the moon is coming to an end. How to get this money to pay is a problem. And then I have been a liar before my landlord for about 3 years now. I always try to change my statement. So I ended up hanging back, wandering around everywhere for him to see that I'm working, whereas I'm not. So these are kind of the situation that we are facing. And I'm one of the oldest people as far as this ISS is concerned. We were the first people to start this ISS since 2006. And I have been in this situation until now, and there is no any change. Even though the boss of ISS has explained his side of the story, we can not also just stand here and listen, but we are also talking about our side, the way we are feeling. Because this is about our life, and we are people who are capable, who will be able to exhibit what we have in case we have opportunity. I've been here for 8 good years doing nothing. I'm beginning to understand that I'm becoming useless. Despite the skills that I can exhibit, despite what I can produce as something that I think will be helpful to somebody. We have been here for so many years now. If we have been prevented from working, what about keeping us busy, doing something that we can keep it so that we can use it for the rest of our lives? Our time is getting over. 8 years doing nothing. And we cannot be here just because we came here for happiness. No. I was a teacher. I used to receive salary. If it is about money, consider the number of years I've spent here. I have not gained anything. This should be an advice for me to go back if there is no problem. So, I just want to conclude that whilst we are making arrangements to see how our condition will be changed, certain things must be considered regarding people who will be willing to have some short courses to live on. We cannot continue like this forever. Even if we should find ourselves in another location, you have hope. Now, I want to tell you, if now you ask asylum seekers to vote, food and hope, many people will choose hope. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Next.
Now we'd like to invite Mrs. Dorothy to speak.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are really privileged to sit here before you and put forward our problem. We are really honored to be here. Thank you very much. I have 4 points to talk about. The major point is the housing issue. The housing issue is a total nightmare in our community. Truly, there is no room that rents out for 1,200 as we speak, except for a few places that are not supposed to be lived in by people, i.e. the pigsties. The owners converted into shelters and charge them as they wish. If you are lucky to get a room and can't be paid up by ISS, the best solution is to cramp yourselves into small rooms that are suitably for 1 person or 2. And as if that is not enough, landlords raise their rents whenever they feel like. Many of these dingy rooms have their rents raised every 6 months. With a complimentary, you can pack out if you can't pay. As you know, we don't have any income to pay up the balance. We depend entirely on the government and the handouts from Good Samaritans. Point number 2, food. All we can say is that food is not enough. I'll give an example. If you give me 5 kilograms of rice, a piece of chicken, a few grams of meat, 5 ripe bananas, and maybe 3 tomatoes, I have to ration this food for 10 good days. Believe me, it's not enough. Worst of all, this same food is supposed to be divided into a portion of 5-day ratio by beginning of August. I'm not so sure whether we shall be receiving 1 banana, 1 orange, quarter a chicken. We don't know why such a small portion, again, is to be divided into 2. Well, ISS knows why it is doing that. Still, it can't patch up the deficit. We, as refugees, people who receive these services, we still oppose the collection of food for 6 times a month. Point number 3, medical. We truly appreciate the medical waivers provided by ISS. But when it comes to seeing specialists, we are locked out. They say we don't qualify. If you need to see a specialist, you should pay. I myself, I walked into a hospital for a gynecological problem. I had a waiver. They closed me out. They said I have to pay $3,000 if I need to see a doctor. I really felt it was not fair on my side. Lastly, education for our children. In our community, we have all children of all ages. These children need to go to school, but most of the time the process to enroll them is made very hard for us to have a breakthrough. It is so complicated in every angle you turn to. Worst of all.
Okay.
May I conclude, please? Just conclusion. Worst of all we are requesting is enough subsistence as we wait. Because without enough subsistence, there's nothing much we can say about it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Next. 我想同各位朋友講，今日於我哋嘅會好緊張，所以每個發言者我哋都歡迎你嚟，但只能夠有3分鐘，好嘛？希望3分鐘完成你哋嘅發言。多謝大家。好，繼續。
Now we would like to invite Ms. Allen to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Julie Allen, and I'm the manager of Christian Action's Chungking Mansion Service Center. Christian Action has been working with refugees here in Hong Kong for almost 30 years, first serving this population when there were waves of Vietnamese refugees fleeing to Hong Kong in the 1980s, and now at our center in Chungking Mansions, where we've operated since 2004, providing humanitarian assistance. We're also a member of the Refugee Concern Network. We're honored to be here today to share our experience and recommendation on how to improve the situation of refugees, torture claimants, and asylum seekers, who I'll now call protection claimants in Hong Kong. Our message is clear. In this wealthy city, protection claimants are struggling for survival. They need more help from the government. Protection claimants who are forced to flee their countries and unable to return often arrive here with little more than the clothes on their back. They must navigate in an unfamiliar city under stressful conditions where they have negligible or even invisible status. The government can do more. Human rights must be respected while they seek protection and await resettlement. Protection claimants must receive sufficient assistance for a dignified stay in Hong Kong. A dignified stay means that they have enough to eat and the personal freedom to choose their own food, that they live in a place that is affordable, habitable, and safe, that they can access education and training opportunities while awaiting resettlement. These are simple things that many of us in this room take for granted, but they cannot. The government's position regarding welfare services to this population is to prevent a person from becoming destitute without creating a magnet effect, which translates to us that the services available are simply insufficient. As we witness at Christian Action almost every day, many protection claimants live their lives in Hong Kong perched on the razor's edge between destitute and not destitute. Their physical needs for food, clothing, and shelter are only just being met and oftentimes tipping over to the edge. Let me quickly address 2 key welfare issues. The government is more than aware that food assistance is in kind at a value of $1,000 per month. Many clients here today and community members here today report that the amount of food is insufficient. Indeed, 70% of respondents in a recent survey conducted by the Refugee Concern Network indicated that they simply do not receive enough food. We propose that the government consider using vouchers or cash disbursements for this program. Last week, we asked a group of recognized refugees to collect one of their monthly food bags, valued at $333, create an itemized list of the foods that they collected, and then go out into the markets to go shopping. Basically, they were able to purchase those exact same items for $229, saving $104 in the process. A voucher or cash transfer system would save the government money in the long run, plus provide protection claimants with personal choice of food, which is simple yet critical to living with dignity.
Thank you. Next.
Yes, we would like to invite Miss Patricia Ann Ho to speak. Ms. Ho.
Thank you. I'm one of the lawyers from Daly & Associates, and we are a firm that has been representing this particular group of persons for many years, many on a pro bono basis. And when it comes to the issue of welfare matters, we have been doing many pro bono work, mainly because of the need. Now, I would just like to highlight, I've already submitted a paper, and I would like to highlight one thing that I find rather surprising. In my paper, I've quoted the government's statement in 2006, in July, 7 years ago, and they talked about their policy when it comes to welfare. And they say this, that they aim to provide support which is considered sufficient to prevent destitution, while at the same time not creating a magnet effect for people to come to Hong Kong. I just read the government's paper submitted this month, and in paragraph 4, they basically stated the exact same sentence. I find that rather alarming to see the exact type of statements made by policymakers who've been dealing with the same problem all these years and have not changed the position in any way. Now, if I look to the key central element or the central point of this statement, they are using welfare as a deterrent effect to not, basically to dispel people from coming to Hong Kong. This is not acceptable. We really need to basically scrutinize what the government is doing with their money. We have heard in the last month some figures from the government saying how much money they're spending on welfare, etc. I would invite, I think, the legislators to ask them for a breakdown. How much of that money is actually spent on legal advice where they are getting to ensure that they are providing the minimum possible welfare to people or minimum possible legal assistance and all the other things to people? It may be, I suspect, that the legal money that they're spending or money on legal advice will surpass the money that they're actually providing in substance to clients. I'd ask for serious scrutiny there. I'd like to also just point out that government has stated all sorts of things of wonderful services that provide to asylum seekers, but at the end of the day, none of it match what we have seen today and statements from asylum seekers and persons of concerns. So I'd like to ask for serious scrutiny of these statements and really not just to allow them to say whatever they wish. The government has been taking the position where they will continue to apply these basic, unlawful, wanting policies until some lawyers, like our own firm, take a case to sue them and win. Now, we have won for many years, but it takes years to bring these cases. It takes years to actually have the next win. And I would like to urge every legislator here to urge the government to actually run policies that are sensible and not wait for them to lose in another legal battle. Thank you.
Next.
Now we would like to invite Pastor Tony Reid to speak. Pastor Reid.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a pastor at the Vine Church in Wan Chai, and through the church we have been providing food, financial aid, assistance and fellowship to over 250 refugees, torture claimants and asylum seekers on a regular basis through our community arm, the Vine Community Services. Our written contribution has been submitted together with Hong Kong Refugee Advice Centre, Christian Action, Refugee Concern Network and Amnesty International. Many have spoken today about human rights, and the protection claimants themselves have drawn attention to the deficits that they feel in the services offered to them. We've also heard about the legal duty incumbent upon the administration to maintain adequate welfare. The protection claimants really have shown that this protection does not in practice exist. But today, as a minister of the gospel, I want to highlight the moral obligation upon the administration as a protection provider towards this vulnerable community. The Bible makes it quite clear that we have a moral duty to take care of those who are in a worse situation than ourselves. Proverbs chapter 3 says, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it." The Pharisees were also chastised by Jesus for their policy, which pursued legal correctness, but which at the same time was morally bankrupt. It's quite clear that the administration's welfare policy set out in paragraph 4 of its policy paper is designed by the Security Bureau to meet the needs of its own security policy and not the needs of the protection claimants. And it has been imposed on the Social Welfare Department to implement as best they are able. The policy, in short, is designed to allow any inconvenience, inhumanity, degradation, indignity, and suffering to protection claimants short of actual destitution. It is designed to send a message to any potential asylum seekers: don't come here, you are on your own. The policy implies that we, as the Hong Kong administration and civil society, are willing to sacrifice mental health, livelihood, and the well-being of 5,000 or so protection claimants so that 7 million of us residents can cling onto our wealth and avoid our moral duty to help those that we have an obligation to protect and provide for. We cannot justify the suffering of a few of the weakest in order to protect the benefits of the majority. We reject this policy as being morally outrageous. Any improvements to the welfare policy claimants must start by changing this morally bankrupt policy, because it cannot form the basis of any just welfare provision. And I urge the administration not to tinker with the present policy. We need to develop a policy that respects the rights of the recipients and reflects the reputation of Hong Kong in the developed world for justice and fairness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
練安妮小姐。
Thank you. Welfare assistance and right to work both concern whether a person is able to sustain his own living. And I'd like to take this opportunity today to focus a bit on the right to work. And most of the clients that we know, they all would like to work. Most of them have been working in their countries and are able-bodied persons who would like to contribute to society and be self-reliant. But right now the policy from the government is that they're not allowed to work, and this really does lead to many problems. We've seen families who have been torn apart, or there are lots of family problems especially we've seen with males who used to work in their home countries, that when they're not able to work or support their own family, that they do break down or have mental health problems. So we do have some clients who have to be on medication or receive counseling. So definitely allowing people to work would be beneficial for their mental health and also for their families. And I think the government should take a look at other countries. Because, for instance, in Australia, if you're an asylum seeker, after 6 months you are allowed to work, even though you're not recognized as a refugee. And the same with UK, it's after 12 months. In US, 150 days. And New Zealand takes a special consideration for families. So if it's a family, they are likely to get a work permit. The second thing that I'd like to focus on is vocational training. We have had, over the years, lots of clients who were teenagers or in their early 20s, both refugee and asylum seekers who were quite young, but they couldn't attend secondary school or primary school in Hong Kong because they were more than 18. And their background was that maybe they came from Somalia and they had 5 years of education because of the war. or even less. And we helped them apply for vocational training at the Vocational Training Council, but they were all rejected. And the Vocational Training Council's policy is that vocational training is for preparation for local employment. So since they don't have a right to work in Hong Kong, they could not attend these kind of courses. So they actually were left with nothing. They were maybe 18, 19 years old, but they don't have a right to work, and they couldn't attend any kind of training or education. So they were just left there stranded.
No, thank you.
So our recommendation is that the government should, of course, allow asylum seekers and refugees to work after some time, and then also focus on the youth, especially with the youth, on vocational training. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Next.
I would like to invite Mr. Peter to speak. Mr. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Peter, technician, mechanic. I have a bachelor degree in mechanic. So I have my own shop back home. But when I have problems with the government, my shop was destroyed, and I came to Hong Kong. I stayed 8 years in Hong Kong without working, all because of the government does not want to give us a chance to prove that we are useless and help ourselves. Many among the 7,000 of asylum seekers and refugees have a degree, have a qualification to be useful for the society. But the government of Hong Kong does not give us that chance. Giving a chance to a refugee and asylum seeker will not harm Hong Kong government, but contrary, it will help and contribute something good for the society. I want to finish this to say there's a saying that give a fish to a man and he will eat for 1 day and come back to you and beg for more. That's what ISIS is doing. Give us fish. But it's not enough. We have to come and beg them for more. Teach a man how to fish, and it will be helpful to himself, feed the community, and contribute to the society. So we need the government to help us, to give us a chance to prove ourselves, for them to know that we are not useless. A lot of people in this asylum seeker and torture claim we have ability, we have knowledge, we have worked before, but right now it's like we are useless. We are nothing. But if Hong Kong government can give us a chance to prove ourselves, they will know that we are useless for society. Some of them, of us need training as well. For example, I was a technician, 8 years staying in Hong Kong, I'm not doing anything. But if I have to go to another country, I need to work. So I need another training. So I will ask the Hong Kong government to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to invite Mr. Philip Karari to speak. Mr. Karari.
Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. My name is Karani, Philip Karani, the head of the UNHCR office in Hong Kong. UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, is given a mandate by the international community, by the United Nations, to coordinate international protection, action for the worldwide protection and resolution of refugee problems. So that explains our presence here. UNHCR's presence in Hong Kong dates back to the 1950s. UNHCR first came to Hong Kong soon after the organization was established in 1951. And the reason UNHCR came to Hong Kong was to advocate for ways in which refugees coming to Hong Kong, mainly from mainland China at that time, could be given assistance. This is important because our role and presence in Hong Kong dates back to a time when Hong Kong itself, most of the people in Hong Kong today, were in need of international assistance. We have, over the last 30 or so years, had a permanent presence in Hong Kong, and our efforts have revolved around advocating and providing assistance for asylum seekers and refugees in Hong Kong. In terms of today's deliberations, we've made a written submission. This submission is based on interviews and discussions that we held with refugees in various forums. Many of the issues we identified have in fact been presented here this afternoon. We've listened to the protection claimants who have come out in very compelling ways to explain the situation as they face it in Hong Kong. And to recap, many of these issues revolve around accommodation. We've heard that accommodation allowance provided through the assistance program is insufficient and does not allow refugees to find safe and adequate housing. Linked to this, of course, is also the issue of a payment of utility expenses, and of course, the issue of rent or deposits. These are issues that have been identified here, and we would like to urge the government to review the levels of assistance given for accommodation. We've also had presentations about food assistance. Various issues have been brought up regarding food assistance, and we would like to urge the government to look at that again carefully to see whether in fact there could be a re-examination and possibly consider a system of a voucher system as opposed to the current system where either because of
Thank you.
This is not quite working. So very briefly, our submission covers many of these points, and I'm glad that many have in fact been highlighted by the protection claimants themselves. Thank you very much.
Please.
Now we would like to invite Professor Simon Young to speak. Professor Young.
Right. Thank you very much for the invitation. The Center for Comparative and Public Law, the Faculty of Law, Hong Kong U, makes essentially one main submission, and that is that we recommend the government to carry out a comprehensive and comparative study of the standards of social and economic protections for asylum seekers in other countries. And I think there's been reference to this in one of the earlier presentations, but we essentially say that there's three good reasons why this study should be carried out. And the first is we need to know if what is happening now in Hong Kong falls below international standards. And I think clearly from what we've heard already, there's very good reasons to think that it does. And I think a study like this would tell us just to what extent it does fall below such standards. The second reason, of course, is that it could excite new ideas and new ways of possible delivery. Why must in Hong Kong we have only one service provider, one contract with ISS? Why not other alternative ways of delivery? We've heard about some of the standards in the common law countries, which are very decent, but very recently, not too far from here, in Malaysia. And Malaysia is very interesting because in Malaysia, they are like Hong Kong. They're not a party to the Refugee Convention. Yet, very recently, they've said that they've decided to allow refugees and asylum seekers to work. Not just only to work, but also to train them as well, because they've seen that as a matter of good policy, this is the way to go. And I would commend those developments to this government. Furthermore, and the third reason is, of course, that such a study would help to promote more proactive policy making. right? We shouldn't have to wait for the courts to tell us what to do. And there will probably be more cases going to the courts if we just sit back and do nothing. And we could keep repeating what was written 8 years ago. It'll just come back and haunt the government when it gets to the courts. And by that time, it could well be too late. People, asylum seekers, could be returned to face torture because they felt that they're living in destitute situations in Hong Kong. And in fact, to have that effect would be in violation of the basic principle of non-refoulement. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Next.
Now we would like to invite Ms. Das to speak. Ms. Das.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I've been a researcher and a clinical counselor in this community for the past 3 years. And I believe this is an opportunity today to begin to work together in open dialogue around the holistic needs of refugees, asylum seekers, and torture claimants. As this community enters our shores, many of them are traumatized. It is critical we promote protective factors at the macro, meso, and micro levels of society, such as social support, resources, access to fundamental services. Today, I focus on health and mental health as a crucial aspect. I'd like to start by acknowledging the immense strengths of this community. In this broken system in Hong Kong, their resilience is tested daily. But even the most resilient people can be broken. And unfortunately, in my experience, working with this community, I've seen high rates of depression, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, as well as violence, family violence, substance use, and unfortunately, suicidal ideation. As we open this valuable dialogue on how to improve the current system, I urge the Hong Kong government to focus on general health and psychosocial support as a key element. Training of healthcare providers, local, clinical social workers, mental health counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists is imperative. This is because in this community, we're dealing with special needs. For example, many of these people have gone through torture, complex trauma, complicated grief, loss of family, home, and just imagine not even knowing whether your family is still alive. As this community is screened through the asylum and torture systems, it is of utmost concern they receive access to mental and behavioral services to prevent re-traumatization. I echo the voices here advocating for researching best global practices. I believe at this juncture there is an opportunity to promote a holistic intervention model for this community. I also emphasize the need for collaboration within the communities, interdisciplinary advocacy among service providers, and tailored, culturally appropriate, and inclusive services for individuals and communities. For individuals, the level of needed support will vary. Assessing and treating trauma is crucial, as is promoting strengths and resilience. Drawing upon a holistic approach to enable social support for refugees, asylum seekers, and torture claimants could prove to be an effective strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 多謝所有人今日俾意見。各位同事，如果有難題同大家商量，我手上總共有7個同事要發言，而我會一定要4點半秘書處話聽，我要交場。咁咧，我就想同大家講，我第一個想劃線，就算劃線之後我處理唔到，因為張超雄仲有個議案，我仲處理議案。秘書處提議我必須要4點半完成晒，因為下邊個會嚟緊，個會同樣福利加民政一齊嘅。咁想聽大家同事意見。如果我呢個時候第一個劃線，第二個兩個每人有2分鐘，我尚且要俾翻3分鐘政府先回應翻團體講嘢，睇下大家意見同唔同意。我諗你我哋點都一定喺個時間內做晒所有嘢嘛。係劉慧卿，唔該。
係你個會嘅，不過我可唔可以建議你開多個會咧？你人哋咁多人嚟講嘢，你匆匆咁去處理咗又唔係幾好啦。咁你咪會後再開多個會咯，主席。
如果你會後咧，就因為由於我哋跟住嗰個就福利同民政。
唔係今日啫。
嗱咁樣我都聽同事其他意見啦。如果擇日咧，我哋呢次揾時間都好辛苦，先揾到夠時間出嚟。好，阿郭明鏗。
我都係跟開呢樣嘢好耐，因為咧呢啲團體咧，佢哋真係等咗好耐，先有呢個機會嚟講嗰幾分鐘。
明白嘅。
如果你叫官員回應3分鐘，我哋回應2分鐘，有咩意思啫？冇意思嘅。
不過郭榮鏗，我想強調，立法會經常就面對種痛苦嘅局面。我做福利經常都處理住呢啲痛苦，不過呢，我願意再諗個時間。不過我想話俾大家聽，今日度呢個會期度得我哋好辛苦嘅。咁我諗張超雄或者個副主席冇嚟，佢都知我哋過程。但點都呢，我係尊重大家嘅。如果大家話擇日再去討論，我同意。 不過我就想嗱，而家已經係答議㗎啦。咁啊，張超雄嗰個咧就未做嘅議案嘅。如果咁樣就張超雄拼埋所有同事問問題，我另外開個會。我就希望由政府認翻，因為今日除咗各個團體、個人，包括係呢個難民公署、香港大學啲等等都嚟講嘅，我都希望政府有個完整啲回應。所以我就想大家同唔同意我哋嘅處理？如果同意咧，就話我哋請政府係回應咗之後再另外一個會，好嘛？張超雄議員。
咁樣我同意開多個會，即係開多次會，我哋當然係即係同意同埋覺得應該啦，因為呢件事需要更加多時間同埋仔細啲去討論。但係我唔想今日咁多團體嚟到呢，我哋就好似冇一啲咁多成果。我擠喺大家台面嘅動議呢，其實係一個好基本嘅一種嘅睇法。咁如果主席同埋我哋同事容許嘅話呢，如果可以處理咗我動議呢，就至少我希望團體呢覺得今日翻去呢都睇到呢個嘅事務委員會有一個基本嘅立場。
我明白晒
亦都就
你意見。
住呢點呢，政府可以作一個下次開會嘅時候
張超雄，
整體嘅
我明白你意見。習慣上，我哋譚中議員。
今日喺咁短時間咧處理唔到張超雄議員所提出嚟嗰個嘅議案嘅嚇，因為大家冇時間去討論，咁你就即刻匆匆話要即刻去支持或者唔支持個議案，咁點可以做得到咧？係咪？不過主要我都提醒下你，因為咧跟住落嚟好多同事咧係可能放假，咁呢度咧好多唔係福利委員會嘅，你到時咧福利委員會咧你揾到時間揾唔到人。咁我覺得你都要留意下呢樣嘢嘅。
多謝
你撐係撐唔到，因為你除非開啲其他嘅會。
嗱，我先講咧，我真係再講同同事講，我哋度呢個時間同秘書處，包括埋跟住嚟嘅馬逢國同埋阿張國柱度咗好耐。不過點都好，我就覺得嗱，我就想咁樣公道啲，咁多團體嚟，我真係好希望政府詳細啲回應翻大家。即係而家大家即係個個難處都問你香港政府到底點啊嘛，咁所以我就想話餘下嘅時間，我就唔想處理其他嘢，就由政府去答。喺答個人當中，如果有某啲同事要同政府去開課或者點咧，我就覺得喺嗰度作一個處理咗嘛。總之我就4點半一定準時交場，咁就處理唔到張超雄嗰個嘛。長毛，你仲有冇其他好嘅意見咧？
我覺得議員唔使講啦，人哋俾佢哋講好過啦。
OK， 咁仲好添。嗱，如果大家都認為咁，我覺得最好處理。我多謝阿長毛。嗱，咁而家開始好嘛？我另擇日再討論，包括埋張超雄個好嘛？希望到時揾時間嘅時候咧，大家都能夠睇點辦法去大家一齊去開埋一個會好嘛？好多謝。就我希望睇下局保安局或者答啊，或者福利啊、物體你都要答嘅，好嘛？兩邊咧都係答，唔好太多啦。但係答呢個係5分鐘到。之後我俾翻團體再問翻你大家嘛，兩個局裏邊都答嘛。OK， 唔該。
好多謝主席，我盡量簡短啦。
Okay.
今日都十分感謝所有團體嚟到，特別係有人現身說法咁樣俾咗一啲意見我哋。其實經過最近一連串即係社會或者係即係喺議會嘅討論咧，我哋都留意到咧，就現行嗰個計劃係無論喺運作上或者係喺嗰個各方面支援嘅水平方面咧，可能都係有一啲地方咧係需要改善嘅。咁我哋咧今日翻去咧會細心考慮所有團體議員俾到我哋嘅意見。咁我哋係會即係逐項去睇咧，睇下有啲咩地方係可以短期嘅，或者係喺長啲嘅時間咧係可以作出改善。咁實際上咧呢方面社會福利署咧已經係開始咗一啲嘅工作係做緊嘅。咁我哋個政策目標其實即係剛才有一啲團體亦都提出過，認為我哋應該係即係再考慮咁樣。咁我哋其實個原則都係清晰嘅，即係無論任何一個喺外國嚟到即係非法入境也好、逾期居留也好，如果佢係提出一個申請呢，我哋係其實目標係盡快希望可以處理到嗰個申請完結咗。如果佢係確立嘅，我哋等佢喺香港可以獲得一個免遣返嘅保障；如果唔確立嘅，我哋盡快希望可以將佢遣送離開香港。咁嗰個現時呢個安排嘅背景呢，就係當呢一班人士喺香港逗留嘅期間呢，佢的而且確衣食住行其他各方面嘅生活係有需要。咁我哋的而且確係為咗避免呢呢一班嘅人喺香港呢係陷入困境呢，所以係由06年開始呢係有呢一個嘅安排。 目前呢，就工作方面呢，其實如果係已經確立咗聲請嘅一啲聲請人，佢如果向入境處提出呢，入境處處長其實係有酌情可以批准佢哋咧喺香港工作嘅。咁呢個呢，就唔包括係等待嘅聲請人，因為相信大家都理解呢，乜嘢人可以喺香港工作呢，係一個十分之敏感嘅問題嚇。咁所以呢，即係呢個唔係淨係從當事人角度嚟睇，我哋都要睇咧香港即係整體嘅一個利益去考慮。咁剛才有團體提到咧，係關於譬如話平斜或者一啲個案嘅處理咧，我想交俾副處長咧係去解釋一下我哋跟進嘅工作係進行成點。
麥太，
多謝主席，多謝咁多位即係正話俾嗰個意見。正如我同事所講咧，即係現有嗰個人道立場嗰個即係援助咧，由06年一路延續到現在咧，我哋都睇到係有一啲地方我哋可以改善嘅。咁正話聽到大家嘅意見啦，我哋喺日後再提供個服務嘅時候咧，我哋都會作一個參考。咁至於平斜嗰個情況嘅時候咧，就喺嗰個即係租住地方咧，其實喺平斜租住嘅朋友咧，大部分喺佢哋未向 ISS 申請個援助之前咧，就已經係喺嗰度居住嘅。即係有部分嘅朋友可能係覺得個居住嘅環境係唔理想嘅。咁呢方面咧，我哋亦都係即係得到 ISS 同事嗰個嘅合作啦。如果個別嘅個案係真係覺得有需要揾另外嘅地方嘅時候咧，國際社嗰邊嘅同事咧係樂意為佢哋提供協助嘅。咁而正話提到嗰個即係租金援助嗰度咧，就開始我哋06年提供呢個援助到現在啦，我哋中間係有作過一個調整。咁另外我哋依家亦都參考翻即係市場嗰個租金嘅趨勢啦，就亦都係檢視緊嗰一個嘅租金水平嘅。咁呢個咧，我哋都睇到係有一個即係改善嘅空間喺度。咁但係詳細嘅情況咧，我哋都希望嚟緊呢1-2個月咧，係可以有一個嘅定案，究竟嘅上調係點咧？咁雖然咧，即係正話不同嘅團體都有提到1,200蚊呢一個數字，呢個基本上面咧係一個參考嘅數字。喺個別嘅個案，如果係真係有特殊嘅情況嘅時候咧，佢哋係可以向國際社嗰邊咧提出佢嗰個個案嘅情況。咁國際社亦都會因應翻個別嘅情形啦，係去作出一個嘅即係調教嗰方面嘅工作嘅。咁而即係最近報章亦都有即係報導，有個別嘅即係租約咧所列載嘅地址咧，係同實際上住嘅地址係有不同嘅。咁呢個我哋即係收到呢啲詳細資料之後咧，我哋都請咗 ISS 咧係要作出一個詳細嘅調查，然後就向我哋作翻一個報告。咁如果有真係一啲違法嘅情況嘅時候咧，我哋都唔排除，我哋都會有一啲採取一啲法律性嘅行動。譬如如果有啲詐騙嘅情況或者點樣啊咁我估即係喺嗰個即係援助方面嘅時候咧，正話即係阿歐生都有提到，我哋都要攞一個嘅平衡，點樣喺避免即係受助人係唔係陷於困境之餘咧，我哋亦都要整體去睇翻嗰個援助嗰個可持續性。同埋即係唔希望會引嚟一個即係磁石嘅效應。咁喺呢度咧，即係我估基本嘅原則，即係我哋都要守翻。但係喺嗰個提供嘅細節裏面咧，我哋都同意係可以有一啲嘅地方喺聽咗大家意見之後啦，我哋喺日後嗰個即係嘅協議同即係一啲服務團體提供服務嘅時候咧，我哋都可以即係作一個嘅參照啊。多謝主席。
OK，今日我哋嘅人客有啲都係團體嚟嘅，包括國際社。我諗或者你都俾一啲意見啦。即係剛才兩位官員咁答就話，福利處阿麥太就話，大概2個月到會檢討啲相關嘅事。但有啲嘢佢提咗出國際服務社，我睇下有冇其他團體想問一問咧，透過你哋，好嘛？冇啊嘛 ？OK， 我哋同事有冇嘢想要係阿劉興儀唔該。
係主席啊，我相信。團體提出有啲係好迫切嘅問題嚟㗎，咁就係包括住屋嘅地方啦，你話 CNN 都話到我哋係地獄嘅咁樣，同埋食物唔足夠，同埋啲細路仔冇得去讀書，即係其實咧我希望我哋第日可以有個團咧去睇一睇嗰啲地方啊，主席。但係幾位官員可唔可以講咧？係呢頭先講嗰幾樣嘢咧，喺呢1-2個禮拜內咧， 係可以馬上處理到，即係揾翻一啲可以符合人去住嘅地方俾佢住。同埋咧，佢話唔夠食物啊，嗰啲係咪俾到佢？同埋電視又話有啲細路仔6歲5歲就冇得讀書啦，因為你哋摟咗佢個條件。呢啲嘢係咪可以處理到呢？主席？咁如果就算開唔到會呢，我希望好快9月翻嚟係盡快開會，就叫啲官員嚟答晒佢。咁其實喺呢個期間，呢團體可以話俾我哋聽㗎。原來一滴嘢都冇做過㗎。食又唔夠食，又繼續瞓豬欄啊咁樣，我真係多得你唔少啊！香港個名譽啊掃晒地。咁係咪呢幾樣啊？啲細路仔一定要有書讀，係咪可以答到啊？
係阿胡生答或者麥太。
我先講居住方面咧，其實阿麥太剛才亦都有提到。一直以嚟咧，其實喺坪輋地區居住嘅一班嘅受助人咧，假如佢哋認為係希望搬離開嗰個地方咧，其實佢哋係可以主動向服務社提出嘅。服務社每一個月咧會同佢哋會面，每一次咧其實佢哋都有機會可以提出，就係可唔可以協助咧係幫忙佢哋去搬去一個比較或者佢哋認為比較適合嘅地方。咁喺呢方面咧。服務社係會繼續跟進嘅，呢個機會咧亦都係繼續存在。咁呢個機制咧，其實亦都係喺每一個受助人嘅個案裏邊咧，都係咁樣安排嘅。咁讀書方面咧，呢個就係由教育局去安排啦。咁喺香港嘅停留嘅呢一班嘅申請人，佢哋有一啲咧佢有啲係帶埋啲小朋友嚟到香港啦。咁佢有一啲咧就喺香港等候嘅期間咧就有下一代啦。咁無論如何咧，佢係適齡入學嘅一啲嘅申請人嘅下一代，如果佢哋係向教育局提出係希望咧安排入學咧。程序上咧，教育局係會向入境處咧係作出一個查詢。咁查詢咧係就一個方面查詢嘅啫，就係到底呢一個申請人或者佢嘅下一代會唔會喺短期之內係可能佢譬如話嗰個申請已經完成咗啦，咁咧佢係不確立嘅，咁佢係會被遣送離開。假如唔係嘅，即係話，假如呢一個嘅小朋友佢喺香港咧係會停留一段比較長嘅時間咧，咁入境處係會回覆返教育局咧，就係嗰個佢唔會短期內被遣送離開啦。咁教育局咧就再按佢嘅一個即係入學嘅程序咧去處理，即係安排到底係咪有學位啊，諸如此類咁樣。咁所以咧，基本上我哋嗰個嘅即係大體嚟講嗰個安排係咁樣。咁至於即係傳媒有報道嗰啲嘅個案咧，我哋需要多少時間再去理解一下嚇。咁食物方面或者
等間先回應好嘛？我而家有3個同事舉手，咁而家仲係呢個20分，我哋仲有10零分鐘，我希望每人2分鐘。3位咧就係好，我有個團體係咪 ？OK， 好啊。講埋食物啦，好嘛？好，
聽唔到啊，主席，你對埋啲個咪嚇，唔該。
按檢討嘅時候咧，其實都會有一個即係表格咧，係俾個申請人咧係去剔佢需要嗰個食物嘅。咁如果食物嘅種類咧，其實亦都係不斷去因應翻嗰個需要而作出一個添加。咁而個量方面咧，就應該係一個普通成年人係嘅量，或者個小朋友嘅量咧，係應該滿足到嘅。如果話發覺有唔滿足到嘅情況咧，呢啲個別個案咧，我哋都希望詳細啲了解下個情況係點解會有咁情形出現。因為嗰個數量同個即係款式咧，亦都係盡量滿足即係嗰個申請人嗰個需要，包括佢喺嗰個即係宗教啊、種族各方面。嗰小朋友嘅時候，亦都係有小朋友嘅奶粉啊、食物啊嗰啲係提交嘅。咁至於正話，亦都有即係朋友表示過嗰個攞食物嘅次數嘅多少咧，其實呢個係可以作出一個嘅適應或者調教嘅。有啲嘅家庭，如果佢一次過係攞太多嘅時候咧，我哋都理解到可能個次數係比較頻密一啲咧，就會係比較方便啲。咁呢個咧就國際社嘅同事喺同佢哋作出個協議嘅時候咧，都可以就住呢一方面係作出一個嘅調教。有啲嘅申請人可能佢唔想去得咁頻密嘅。咁佢嗰個攞嘅次數咧，可能相對係會比較多一啲。咁我估呢個即係我哋冇一個定案，一定話佢一個月要嚟6次定係幾多次。好多時都真係因應翻佢嗰個嘅情況。咁亦都有朋友有提過，就話我去攞食物嘅時候拎住太多，我搭公共車可能係唔方便，特別一啲家庭可能係牽涉到婦女帶住小朋友嘅。 如果有呢啲咁情況嘅時候咧，其實依家個安排咧就國際社都會酌情咧係因應佢嗰個情況，有陣時都係提供一個的士費用俾佢哋。咁有陣時可能係如果有兩家人住埋一齊，亦都同一日去攞呢個食物嘅時候咧，可能佢哋係會一齊去分擔一個的士嘅費用，呢個都會有。咁我估呢個亦都希望大家明白咧，有陣時我哋喺使用公帑嘅時候咧，我都要睇一睇翻嗰個嘅用途嗰方面。咁我估我簡單講住咁多先，多謝主席。
好，跟住咧就Ann 好。
Have a quick feedback to some of the statements made. I think one of the biggest disappointments I'm having is that many of the responses given are basically maintaining that your current system is adequate. The fact is that it's not. You say that you're providing adequate food. The fact is the whole population doesn't think that that's enough. It's not 有個別情況唔夠. The whole population thinks that it's not. The other thing is about rental. You say that 1,200 is only basic and that some people will be topped up. The fact is you only get a top up if you get a valid medical certificate saying that you've got a broken arm, broken leg or something. Very, very few people have more than 1,200. I just also want to say that there's a suggestion that ISS will help people move out of paying chair if necessary or if the person wants. Again, we know how the system works. ISS will allow the person to go out there in society and find a place. And if they're able to find a place within 1,200, then they will allow and help them to move. But if they're not, the fact is they're going to stay there. So if there's no practical options for people, no practical help, ISS is not going to take these people by the hand and go offer them other places. That's simply not the case happening here. And the final, I just have one little concern, is they say that, if some people have given false addresses, then they will consider taking legal action against them. That raises an alarm bell to me because these persons are vulnerable. And if any asylum seekers are blamed for providing false addresses or certain things and they are put into jail for that reason, many times they don't even know what's happening. That's a situation that we must prevent. We need to provide help and not try to punish them for further deterrent effects. Thank you.
Okay. 政府
回應兩句。一個咧就係剛才講話可以去揾國際社去尋求協助咧，佢其實都有兩方面，一個就係當然佢如果係揾到其他地方係佢認為適合搬嘅，咁可以向國際社去要求協助啦。但係其實比較主要嘅咧係，譬如話呢一類個案，佢係未必可以有能力係自己用自己嘅辦法去揾到嘅話咧，咁佢哋係可以向國際社尋求嗰個協助咧，就係要求國際社幫佢去揾一個係適合嘅地方去搬遷。咁呢個咧就唔係話要佢再趕佢出去自己去揾。咁另外咧就係剛才麥太提到嗰個嘅所謂如果我哋喺調查過程發現有一啲地方係需要再作出譬如話係法律方面嘅跟進咧，係講緊如果個業主佢係提供一啲虛假嘅資料去俾服務社同埋社署係去關於嗰個租金津貼方面嘅一個安排。咁如果我哋有呢啲資料係見到嘅話咧，我哋係會轉交執法部門嘅跟進。咁係講緊業主方面。
OK， 我哋而家仲有5分鐘，4分鐘。我諗每個人講1分鐘啊嘛。我手上有3個人舉咗手嘅，就何俊仁、黃碧雲同埋張超雄。就何俊仁1分鐘，麥美娟1分鐘。講完就冇得再答㗎啦，好嘛 ？OK。
主席，我哋係香港人，個個有身份證嘅。我個知道1,200蚊可以租到咩地方？香港真係講笑。咁正話副處長仲話坐的士大家夾錢。喂，你寫明話明最平嘅交通費要用，點坐的士咧？我真係唔明白。所以你嘅心仲諗住嗌人坐的士，即係我覺得你都知唔知道發生咩事咧咁樣。咁咧就同埋咧我想咁樣，因為冇時間講，我想咧第日你哋政府嘅文件都話俾佢聽，有幾多小朋友而家冇書讀嘅。我最緊張呢樣嘢，呢個第一樣嘢。第二樣嘢點解唔俾工作啊？嗱呢樣嘢我睇唔得到啦，因為點解咧？就係你就係用話好敏感俾佢哋工作，點解唔可以去做工作咧？對佢哋去申請難民或者酷刑公約嘅受害者嘅身份，有咩嘢違背先？點解人哋第啲國家做到咧咁樣？咁我咧仲有一樣嘢，你記住咧，工作咧係可以對呢班咁喺香港滯留喺香港，幾困苦人嚟講咧， 係有啲即係使佢唔好咁隔離，
OK
係咪啊？咁一反為，如果你連工作都冇，要佢做義工咧，活喺咁貧困嘅環境之下咧，根本係極之不公義啊！
清楚，張超雄。
主席，首先多謝咁多團體同埋啲難民自己上到嚟，佢哋其實好勇敢㗎，因為好多喺香港佢哋都擔心自己嘅安全問題啦。咁嚟到呢度，佢公開向大家咁講嘢咧，其實係一啲都唔容易。我哋知道好多而家個生活咧真係困苦，政府話唔會讓佢哋陷於困苦咧，呢個係大話嚟。因為頭先咧，即係 Vision First 嗰個嘅幻燈片都影得好清楚，可惜我哋啲燈光唔係安排得好好，睇得唔清楚。我自己去過好多次，探過即係坪輋啊、打鼓嶺一帶嘅難民。我都好贊成阿劉慧卿議員，我哋呢個委員會咧可以安排一次去探訪一下，最好連埋嗰啲高官去探，等佢哋都落一次去睇下嗰啲乜嘢叫做困苦。我希望即係你盡快安排。
好，唔該。跟住咧就黃碧雲。
多謝主席。我想就下一次會嘅時候咧，係政府答我哋幾個問題啦。第一，平均嗰個審核時間係幾長？點解唔可以縮短嚇？第二就係剛才都有人問，就係點解只係得一間機構就係呢個 ISS 係負責呢個難民照顧咧？咁而似乎我哋擺落去嘅錢都唔少嘅，每年係2億。咁社署係負責監管呢啲錢係點使嘅。咁下一次上嚟嘅時候，請你俾埋文件我哋，究竟呢一個 ISS 嗰2億嘅錢有幾多成係用喺行政費用，有幾多成係直接用喺難民嗰度？第三個問題咧就關於住嗰度啦。咁我哋咧其實有一啲空置嘅學校嘅，有冇考慮過咧係攞一啲空置嘅學校嚟係收容呢啲嘅難民嘅人士咧？咁呢一個係咪會都去探討？即係喺埋，因為我哋知道有啲校址係冇用到要諗辦法嚟做乜嘅。
OK， 好多謝你，麥美娟議員。
主席，我記得我8年前喺一個社會福利機構工作嘅時候咧，其實有位代表都喺度嘅。當時我哋其中一個服務就係幫 asylum seekers 佢哋嘅福利。咁嗰陣時，我記得我係負責做 media 嘅。我哋要安排一啲嘅當事人出嚟做啲訪問，想講佢哋嘅遭遇咧，絕對唔容易，好難嘅。所以我覺得今日有關嘅同事，即係有關嘅當事人，即係佢哋啲 protection claimant，佢哋肯走出嚟講你哋自己嘅感受，講你自己嘅遭遇咧，我覺得好重要，因為有你哋去講翻俾我哋聽，你哋嘅知道。即係我做過，所以我知。咁但係我覺得比較遺憾嘅就係我嗰陣時講嘅係8年前去做嘅。已經講緊我哋資源唔夠，我哋以為政府有啲咁嘅新嘅撥款嘅時候咧，可以解決到佢哋嘅問題，但係仍然都係解決唔到。講咗咁多年都係有呢個老問題，咁所以我覺得即係政府你真係唔該快啲做啲嘢。而且第二樣嘢咧，主席頭先講話我哋會再開會，我覺得如果你再開會咧，應該同埋保安事務委員會係一個 joint meeting， 因為中間有一個好重要嘅問題，就係佢哋點樣去解決佢哋可以嗰個資格嗰個認證嗰個問題。
今日嘅會咧係 joint meeting 嚟嘅。所以我哋就到上到俾保安佢話佢哋唔參與，咁所以就由我哋召開，唔緊要。嗱，我哋都有各位同事我總結下，將今日所有嘅同事同埋有關團體意見咧，秘書處寫咗落嚟㗎啦。咁頭先一個好清楚，我聽到麥太就話你俾2-3個禮拜我啦咁樣。咁跟住劉興義就問佢你1-2月得唔得咧？我計份帶翻嚟開會，我同意嘅。即係我諗如果你即刻要去答佢，可能答到我哋。咁我就建議索性9月份嘅上旬。我哋同秘書處，我估計而家大家遲少少就走人㗎啦。咁跟住有啲訪問團出，我立法會有訪問團出嘅。咁變咗咁嘅時候咧，如果大家都認為 OK 咧，我就同埋副主席再同埋保安再商量下。我哋大約9月嘅上旬睇下大家得唔得。如果大家話唔得咧，我哋會秘書處俾個大家填翻嚟，好唔好啊 ？OK。如果大家冇意見咧，OK。
又可以遲啲，但係我哋你話跟住再開會㗎嘛？即係
我哋9月份得唔得？9月份
即係翻到9月先開會啊！
嗱，剛才劉永咁嘅建議，我就想問大家同唔同意？
唔係，我仲以為我哋喺即係呢一個會期內開多次㗎。如果唔係，
都算呢個會期內㗎。不過月份就唔係7月，7月我唔知。如果得我就唔使揾得咁慘啦，好嘛？
咁啊，早知係處理咗我動議先
冇啦，因為我同意同事講要討論先啦，唔好
再拖多2個月。
嗰位同事，我特別相關嘅福利事委員會，因為今日呢個福利事委員會會議嘅，我希望大家攞翻個時間出翻嚟好嘛？嗱，你哋話如果要8月份，我冇意見嘅，8月或者9月份都係呢個嘅年度嘅會期，咁我就聽大家意見。今日咧就處理唔到問題啦。佢哋嘅主席已經馬逢國坐住㗎啦，咁我要讓翻個位俾佢好嘛 ？OK 好。我哋將兩件事都透過俾大家嘅一個填翻嚟表格啊嘛，睇下大家情況點。即係嗱，呢個就同同事講咗之後咧，都同政府講翻啦。剛才大家關心嘅教育啦、住啦，同埋一個咁嘅食嘅問題啦，以至工作問題咧，我希望咪睇好啦。就係相關嘅保安局嘅同事咧，胡生都好啦，你盡快俾啲文件俾我哋立法會好嘛？好嘛？雖然我哋個表面上放暑假，實我哋冇放假嘅，你擺上俾我哋好嘛 ？OK， 咁唔該晒大家，亦都多謝所有團體交嚟，但唔好意思，由於而家係個會嘅時間唔足夠討論多啲，咁啊點都多謝大家。我哋有任何嘅決定或者任何嘅信息話翻俾大家聽，多謝大家。OK， 好，馬逢國唔該。